The Amazon rainforest is one of the most important ecosystems on Earth. Spanning across multiple countries in South America, it is home to millions of species of plants, animals, and microorganisms. It plays a crucial role in maintaining the balance of our planet's climate, water cycle, and biodiversity. But what if the entire Amazon rainforest were to burn down? What would happen to the environment, the atmosphere, and life on Earth? If a massive fire were to engulf the entire Amazon, the first and most immediate impact would be the sheer devastation of plant and animal life. The Amazon is home to over 3 million species of plants and animals, many of which exist nowhere else on Earth. A fire of this scale would wipe out entire ecosystems in a matter of days, causing irreversible loss of biodiversity. Thousands of species, from jaguars to rare insects, would either die in the flames or lose their habitats, leading to mass extinctions. The heat from a fire this size would also create an enormous plume of smoke and ash that would spread across South America and beyond. The skies would darken and the air would become thick with toxic fumes. This would pose a serious health hazard to people living in surrounding regions. The smoke could travel across continents, affecting air quality in other parts of the world. Respiratory illnesses would spike, and the reduced sunlight could even lower temperatures in certain areas temporarily, creating strange weather patterns. One of the most concerning effects would be the release of massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The Amazon acts as one of the largest carbon sinks on the planet, absorbing and storing carbon dioxide from the air. If the rainforest were to burn completely, all of that stored carbon would be released in one catastrophic event. This would accelerate climate change at an unprecedented rate. Scientists estimate that the Amazon holds over 100 billion metric tons of carbon. Releasing this all at once would lead to a sharp increase in global temperatures, speeding up ice melt, rising sea levels, and extreme weather events worldwide. Fires of this magnitude would also disrupt the water cycle. The Amazon generates its own rainfall through a process called transpiration, where trees release moisture into the air, which then forms clouds and returns as rain. Without trees, this cycle would break down. Rainfall in the region would plummet, leading to widespread droughts, not just in South America, but in distant parts of the world that depend on the Amazon's moisture. Agricultural regions that rely on consistent weather patterns could face crop failures, leading to food shortages and economic struggles. The destruction of the Amazon would not only affect South America, but the entire planet. Its loss would set off a chain reaction of environmental disasters, some of which we might not even fully understand yet. The full consequences would unfold over time, making it clear just how much we depend on this vital rainforest. But this is just the beginning of the disaster. In the next part, we'll explore what would happen in the days and weeks following the destruction of the Amazon, and how the loss of this massive rainforest would continue to reshape our world. In the days and weeks following the destruction of the Amazon rainforest, the environmental effects would become even more severe. The immediate fires may have died down, but the long-term consequences would continue to unfold, impacting ecosystems, weather patterns, and even human populations worldwide. One of the first noticeable changes would be the dramatic shift in global weather. With the Amazon gone, the atmospheric moisture that once helped regulate temperatures and rainfall across South America and beyond would disappear. Large parts of the continent would begin drying out, leading to desertification in areas that were once lush and thriving. Countries like Brazil, Peru, and Colombia would experience prolonged droughts, severely impacting agriculture and water availability. Rivers that once depended on the rainforest rainfall, including the Amazon River itself, would shrink, affecting millions of people who rely on them for drinking water, transportation, and food. And without the Amazon's ability to trap heat and regulate temperatures, extreme heat waves would become more common, not just in South America, but across the globe. Regions that were already prone to high temperatures would see record-breaking heat, while areas further from the equator could experience sudden and unpredictable climate shifts. The loss of tree cover would also cause massive soil erosion, as the roots of the rainforest trees had previously held the soil together. Without them, landslides and dust storms would become more frequent, further damaging local communities. Another critical consequence would be the rapid increase in carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. While the initial fire released billions of tons of carbon, the absence of the rainforest would mean that this carbon could no longer be absorbed and stored. Global temperatures would begin rising more quickly than before, leading to an acceleration of climate change. Ice caps in Antarctica and the Arctic would start melting at an even faster rate. contributing to rising sea levels that could flood coastal cities worldwide. The disappearance of the Amazon would also disrupt ocean currents. The rainforest plays a crucial role in regulating air pressure and temperature, both of which influence oceanic weather patterns. Without it, shifts in wind and water temperatures could cause more frequent and intense hurricanes, typhoons, and monsoons. Places that typically experience mild storms could suddenly be hit by catastrophic weather events, leading to loss of life and destruction of infrastructure. The global food supply would also take a major hit. The Amazon's impact on weather patterns helps maintain stable agricultural conditions in multiple regions, including parts of North America, Africa, and Europe. Without it, farming conditions would become unpredictable, leading to crop failures, food shortages, and rising prices. Farmers would struggle to adapt to the rapid changes, and some regions could experience famine as a result. As the weeks go by, the damage would extend beyond nature, affecting human health and economies. With lower oxygen levels and higher pollution, respiratory illnesses would become more widespread. Hospitals would be overwhelmed with cases of asthma and lung infections, especially in cities that were already dealing with air pollution. The economic impact would be devastating as well, as industries reliant on the Amazon's resources, from agriculture to pharmaceuticals, would collapse, leading to job losses and financial instability. The destruction of the Amazon rainforest wouldn't just be an environmental disaster, it would be a humanitarian crisis. In Part 3, we'll explore what life on Earth would look like in the months following this catastrophe, and how societies would struggle to adapt to an entirely new world. Months after the Amazon rainforest is completely burned down, the world would be in a state of environmental and societal crisis. By this point, the immediate fires and their thick smoke would have dissipated, but the long-term effects would be growing more severe. The planet would be struggling to adjust to the loss of one of its most important ecosystems, and the consequences would be impossible to ignore. One of the biggest changes would be in the atmosphere. Without the Amazon's ability to absorb carbon dioxide, global greenhouse gas levels would continue to rise at an alarming rate. This would lead to further warming, causing unpredictable and extreme weather events. Some regions would experience prolonged droughts, while others would be hit by record-breaking storms and flooding. The damage caused by these weather shifts would make it increasingly difficult for communities to recover, forcing many people to relocate as their homes and farmland become uninhabitable. Biodiversity loss would also reach a devastating scale. While the fires themselves would have wiped out countless species, the after effects would continue to impact wildlife. Many animals that managed to escape the destruction would struggle to survive in the altered environment. Without the dense vegetation of the rainforest, food sources would be scarce, and competition for resources would increase. Some species would migrate to new areas, but many would not be able to adapt quickly enough and would face extinction. This loss of biodiversity would have a cascading effect on ecosystems worldwide, as the Amazon's wildlife played a role in maintaining balance far beyond its borders. The loss of the Amazon's water cycle would also lead to significant changes in freshwater availability. Without the rainforest natural filtration system, rivers and lakes in South America would become more polluted and less reliable as sources of clean water. This would impact not only people in the region, but also global industries that rely on South America's water supply for agriculture and manufacturing. The lack of rain would further deplete reservoirs, making hydroelectric power generation more difficult. Countries that depend on the Amazon's water flow for energy would face electricity shortages, leading to economic instability and power outages. In cities worldwide, air quality would continue to worsen. While oxygen levels would not drop to dangerous levels, the combination of excess carbon dioxide and ongoing deforestation in other parts of the world would lead to increasingly poor air conditions. Major cities that already struggle with pollution, such as Sao Paulo, New Delhi, and Beijing, would see a rise in respiratory illnesses. Governments would be forced to implement emergency measures to control emissions, but without the Amazon's natural ability to regulate air quality, these efforts would be less effective. Another consequence of the Amazon's destruction would be its impact on indigenous communities. Many indigenous groups depend entirely on the rainforest for food, medicine, and shelter. With their land completely destroyed, they would be left without resources or a place to live. Some might attempt to integrate into urban areas, but many would face challenges due to the loss of their traditional way of life. Their knowledge of the rainforest plants and ecosystems, knowledge that has been passed down for generations, would also be lost, further erasing an important part of human history and culture. Meanwhile, the global economy would continue to suffer. Agriculture, tourism, and industries that relied on Amazonian plants and minerals would be forced to adjust to a world without them. Many products that people take for granted, such as coffee, chocolate, and medicinal plants, would become scarce or much more expensive. The pharmaceutical industry, which relies on compounds found in the Amazon, would struggle to find replacements for certain medicines, potentially delaying medical advancements and treatments. As the months pass, it would become clear that life on Earth has permanently changed. The Amazon rainforest had provided stability to global ecosystems for millions of years, and now its absence would be felt in every corner of the planet. In Part 4, we'll explore what the world might look like in the years that follow and whether humanity would be able to adapt to this new reality. Years after the Amazon rainforest has completely burned down, the world has been forced to adapt to a reality shaped by its loss. The environmental, social, and economic effects have only deepened, leaving behind a planet that is less stable, less predictable, and far more difficult to live in. By this point, global temperatures have risen significantly. Without the Amazon's ability to store carbon, greenhouse gas levels have continued to climb, intensifying the effects of climate change. Entire regions that were once habitable are now suffering from extreme conditions. The Arctic has seen record ice melt, causing sea levels to rise even faster. Coastal cities, including major economic hubs, have been forced to build costly infrastructure to hold back the ocean. Some areas have become completely uninhabitable, displacing millions of people. This has created a global refugee crisis, as populations are forced to migrate to places that are already struggling to support their own citizens. The weather has become even more erratic, storms are stronger, droughts are longer, and wildfires have become more frequent worldwide. The loss of the Amazon disrupted global rainfall patterns, and this effect has only worsened over time. Crops that once thrived in certain areas no longer grow, forcing farmers to find new land or abandon their trade altogether. Food shortages are becoming common, and the cost of basic necessities has skyrocketed. Countries that depended on consistent rainfall from the Amazon, particularly in South America, now suffer from repeated crop failures. In many parts of the world, fresh water is becoming more difficult to access. The Amazon played a crucial role in regulating the global water cycle, and its absence has left reservoirs and groundwater supplies shrinking. Some of the rivers that relied on its constant moisture have dried up, leaving communities without a reliable water source. Water disputes have become more frequent, leading to tensions between nations that are competing for what little remains. Some regions have resorted to expensive desalination efforts, but these solutions are not enough to meet the growing demand. Biodiversity loss has also reached a critical point. With the Amazon gone, thousands of species have gone extinct, while many others struggle to survive in a world without their native habitat. The loss of these animals and plants has caused unexpected ripple effects. Certain insect populations have exploded due to the lack of natural predators, leading to problems in agriculture and public health. Meanwhile, pollinators like bees and butterflies have declined, making food production even more difficult. The damage to the natural world is something that cannot be undone, and scientists warn that we are in the midst of an irreversible mass extinction event. Economically, the world has struggled to adjust. The industries that once relied on the Amazon's resources, such as pharmaceuticals and agriculture, have been forced to find alternative solutions. However, many of these replacements are costly and less effective. The sudden disappearance of key crops and medicinal plants has changed global markets, making everyday products much more expensive. Countries that once benefited from the Amazon's tourism industry have suffered major financial losses, as there is nothing left to attract visitors. The once thriving ecotourism sector has completely collapsed. Beyond the tangible effects, there is also a sense of loss that cannot be measured. The Amazon was a natural wonder, home to incredible biodiversity and cultures that had existed for thousands of years. Its disappearance has left a hole in the planet's identity, reminding humanity of what was lost due to short-term greed and negligence. While reforestation efforts have been attempted, the scale of destruction has made it nearly impossible to restore what was lost. The ecosystem that once existed in the Amazon took millions of years to develop, and even with the best efforts, it would take thousands of years to regain anything close to what was once there. As the years pass, scientists, environmentalists, and leaders look back at the loss of the Amazon as one of the greatest environmental disasters in history. The warnings were there. The consequences were clear, and yet humanity allowed it to happen. Now future generations are left to deal with the consequences of a world that is hotter, drier, and more unstable than ever before. The question that remains is whether humanity will learn from this disaster and take action to protect the remaining forests and ecosystems that still exist. If not, the loss of the Amazon may only be the beginning of a much larger catastrophe. Earthquakes are one of the most powerful natural forces on Earth, capable of reshaping the land in a matter of seconds. They happen when energy that has been building up underground is suddenly released, sending shockwaves through the Earth's crust. This energy release is caused by the movement of massive slabs of rock beneath the surface, known as tectonic plates. These plates are always shifting, though usually at a slow and steady pace. However, when they get stuck against each other, pressure builds up over time. Eventually, the stress becomes too great and the plates suddenly slip, releasing a huge amount of energy in the form of an earthquake. The place where this movement happens is called a fault line. Faults are cracks in the Earth's crust where plates meet and interact. Some faults slowly creep over time, while others remain locked in place for decades or even centuries before releasing built-up energy all at once. The exact location underground where an earthquake begins is called the focus, and the point directly above it on the surface is known as the epicenter. The closer a place is to the epicenter, the stronger the shaking tends to be. The strength of an earthquake is measured using the moment magnitude scale, which scientists use to calculate the total energy released. The shaking caused by an earthquake can vary widely from small tremors that go unnoticed to massive quakes that bring down buildings and reshape landscapes. Some earthquakes cause the ground to rupture visibly, splitting roads and shifting entire sections of land. Others occur deep beneath the surface, shaking the ground without leaving any visible cracks. Earthquakes can happen anywhere, but they are most common along plate boundaries, where tectonic plates meet and interact. One of the most active earthquake zones in the world is the Pacific Ring of Fire, a horseshoe-shaped region that stretches around the edges of the Pacific Ocean. This area is home to some of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded, as well as frequent volcanic eruptions. Other regions like the Himalayas experience earthquakes due to the ongoing collision of large continental plates. Even though earthquakes can be sudden and unpredictable, scientists have been studying them for decades to better understand their causes and effects. By monitoring fault lines and measuring ground movements, researchers can identify high-risk areas and improve earthquake preparedness. While it is not yet possible to predict exactly when an earthquake will occur, understanding how they happen is a crucial step in reducing their impact. When an earthquake occurs, the energy release travels through the ground in the form of seismic waves. These waves move outward from the focus, shaking the Earth's surface and structures above. There are different types of seismic waves, each affecting the ground in unique ways. The first waves to be detected are called primary waves, or P waves. These waves travel the fastest and move in a push-pull motion, similar to how sound waves move through air. Because they are the first to arrive, P waves are often used in early warning systems to provide a few seconds of advance notice before stronger shaking begins. Following closely behind are secondary waves, or S waves, which move more slowly but cause much more damage. Unlike P waves, which travel in a straight line, S waves move in a side-to-side motion, shaking the ground horizontally and making buildings sway. In addition to P waves and S waves, surface waves are another major factor in the path of destruction caused by earthquakes. These waves travel along the Earth's surface rather than through its interior, and they move in a rolling or rippling motion. Surface waves are responsible for the most intense shaking and can cause the ground to crack, buildings to collapse, and landslides to occur. Because they travel more slowly than P waves and S waves, the shaking from surface waves can last longer, especially in large earthquakes. The extent of destruction caused by an earthquake depends on several factors, including the magnitude of the quake, the depth at which it occurs, and the type of ground beneath the affected area. Earthquakes that occur at shallow depths tend to cause the most damage, as the seismic waves have a less distance to travel before reaching the surface. Soft, loose soil can also amplify shaking, making structures more vulnerable to collapse, while solid rock can help absorb some of the energy. In urban areas, the effects of an earthquake can be devastating. Buildings, bridges, and roads are at risk of severe damage, especially if they were not designed to withstand strong shaking. Infrastructure failures, such as broken gas lines and electrical outages, can lead to fires and further destruction. In some cases, entire city blocks have been reduced to rubble within moments of a major earthquake. In addition to structural damage, earthquakes can also trigger natural disasters, like landslides and ground liquefaction, where soil temporarily behaves like a liquid, causing buildings and roads to sink. As scientists continue to study seismic activity, engineers and city planners use this knowledge to design buildings that are more resistant to earthquake damage. Seismic-resistant structures are built with flexible materials and special reinforcements that allow them to sway with the shaking, rather than collapse under the stress. Advances in early warning systems and emergency preparedness have also helped to reduce the risks associated with earthquakes, providing people with critical seconds to take cover before strong shaking begins. While seismic waves are responsible for the immediate shaking of an earthquake, their impact extends far beyond the initial tremors. One of the most dangerous secondary effects of earthquakes is the sudden displacement of land and water, leading to events like tsunamis and ground ruptures. Tsunamis occur when an earthquake shifts the ocean floor, displacing massive amounts of water. Unlike regular waves caused by wind, tsunamis move rapidly across the ocean as a series of powerful surges. When they reach shallow coastal waters, their speed decreases, but their height increases dramatically, often resulting in catastrophic flooding. Coastal regions near earthquake-prone zones, such as Japan and Indonesia, are particularly vulnerable to these deadly waves. Ground ruptures happen when the Earth's surface cracks or shifts due to the intense force of an earthquake. These ruptures can tear apart roads, railways, and pipelines, making transportation and emergency response efforts difficult. In some cases, entire sections of land have been lifted or dropped by several feet, permanently altering the landscape. Large fault lines such as the San Andreas Fault in California are known for producing significant ground displacement during major earthquakes. Another dangerous effect of earthquakes is soil liquefaction. This occurs when saturated soil loses its strength and behaves like a liquid due to intense shaking. Buildings and other structures on this unstable ground can tilt, sink, or collapse entirely. This phenomenon is especially common in areas with loose, water-saturated soil, such as river valleys and coastal regions. Liquefaction played a major role in the destruction seen during past earthquakes in places like New Zealand and Turkey. Landslides are also a serious risk in mountainous or hilly regions affected by earthquakes. When the ground shakes, loose rock and soil can break free, sending debris rushing downhill. These landslides can bury entire villages, block roads, and create long-term hazards by reshaping the terrain. Heavy rainfall following an earthquake can further destabilize slopes, increasing the risk of additional slides. The long-term effects of earthquakes extend beyond physical destruction. In the aftermath of a major quake, communities often face food and water shortages, power outages, and displacement of large populations. Rebuilding efforts can take years, and economic losses from infrastructure damage and business disruptions can be enormous. In some cases, earthquakes have permanently changed the way cities are built, leading to stricter building codes and improved disaster preparedness measures. Despite the destruction they cause, earthquakes have also played a crucial role in shaping the Earth's surface over millions of years. They contribute to the formation of mountains, valleys, and other geological features, constantly reshaping the planet. Scientists continue to study earthquakes in hopes of improving early warning systems and minimizing the loss of life in future events. As scientists continue to study earthquakes, advancements in technology have helped improve our ability to detect and respond to them. While earthquakes cannot yet be predicted with absolute certainty, early warning systems have been developed to provide crucial seconds of notice before strong shaking begins. These systems work by detecting the initial seismic waves that travel faster than the damaging ones, sending alerts to people and infrastructure so they can take cover or shut down critical operations. Countries like Japan and Mexico have some of the most advanced early warning networks, helping to reduce casualties and damage when major earthquakes strike. In addition to early warnings, earthquake-resistant construction has become an essential part of protecting people and buildings in high-risk areas. Engineers design structures with flexible foundations, reinforced materials, and shock-absorbing systems that allow buildings to withstand intense shaking. Some skyscrapers are built with counterweights or base isolators, which help reduce movement during an earthquake. Retrofitting older buildings with modern reinforcements is also an important strategy in minimizing destruction. Countries like Chile and Japan have some of the strictest earthquake-resistant building codes in the world due to their frequent seismic activity. Beyond engineering solutions, emergency preparedness plays a key role in reducing the impact of earthquakes. Governments and communities in earthquake-prone regions conduct regular drills to teach people how to respond when the ground begins to shake. Families are encouraged to have emergency kits with food, water, medical supplies, and communication tools in case of disruptions. Knowing how to drop, cover, and hold on during an earthquake can significantly increase survival chances, especially in densely populated areas. Although earthquakes can be devastating, they also serve as a reminder of the powerful forces constantly shaping our planet. Over millions of years, earthquakes have played a role in forming landscapes, creating mountain ranges, and even influencing climate patterns by altering ocean currents and atmospheric conditions. Scientists study past earthquakes to understand how they have shaped the world and use that knowledge to improve preparedness for future events. The study of earthquakes continues to evolve as researchers develop better monitoring systems, improved building techniques, and more effective disaster response strategies. While we may never be able to prevent earthquakes from happening, ongoing scientific advancements help us minimize their impact and protect lives. Understanding these natural events not only helps communities stay safer, but also deepens our knowledge of the ever-changing earth beneath our feet. Tornadoes have been making headlines in 2025, with an alarming trend of increased frequency and intensity. Understanding why so many tornadoes have occurred this year requires a look into the atmospheric conditions that foster their development. Tornadoes form when specific weather elements align. Warm, moist air near the ground meets cooler, dry air above, creating instability. When this instability combines with wind patterns that change direction and speed with height, a phenomenon known as wind shear, it sets the stage for rotating thunderstorms called supercells. Within these supercells, under the right conditions, tornadoes can develop. In 2025, the United States has experienced an unusually warm and wet spring. The Old Farmer's Almanac predicted above-average temperatures and increased rainfall for much of the country, particularly in the Deep South. These conditions contribute to the atmospheric instability necessary for severe thunderstorms and consequently tornadoes. Moreover, the Gulf of Mexico has been supplying abundant moisture to the central and southern regions of the U.S., enhancing the development of thunderstorms. The combination of warm, moist air from the Gulf and cooler air masses moving in from the north creates the perfect environment for tornado formation. Understanding these factors helps explain the surge in tornado activity this year. However, the specific outbreaks and their impacts provide a clearer picture of the situation. In the next part, we'll delve into the major tornado outbreaks of 2025, examining their size, damage, and the communities affected. In the early months of 2025, the United States has experienced a series of devastating tornado outbreaks, each leaving a significant mark on the communities they struck. These events have underscored the volatile nature of this year's weather patterns and the profound impact on affected regions. On March 14th, a powerful storm system initiated a multi-day tornado outbreak across the central United States. The town of Franklin, Arkansas bore the brunt of an EF4 tornado, characterized by winds exceeding 166 miles per hour. This violent twister caused extensive destruction to homes and infrastructure, leading to multiple fatalities. The same day, Diaz, Arkansas experienced a similar EF4 tornado, compounding the devastation in the region. These tornadoes were part of a larger system that produced numerous significant tornadoes across several states. In the aftermath of the mid-March outbreak, communities like Cave City, Arkansas began the arduous process of recovery. An EF3 tornado had torn through the town with winds reaching 165 miles per hour, causing substantial damage. By March 31st, progress was evident as residents and volunteers worked tirelessly to clear debris and rebuild. The resilience displayed by these communities highlighted their determination to recover and prepare for future severe weather events. As April commenced, another formidable storm system swept through the southern and midwestern United States. On April 2nd, Owasso, Oklahoma, was struck by a tornado around 6:40 a.m., resulting in significant roof damage to homes, downed power lines, and uprooted trees. Fortunately, no injuries were reported, but the structural damage was considerable. Later that day, a large multiple vortex wedge tornado with wind speeds nearing 200 miles per hour carved a path of destruction near Lake City, Arkansas. This tornado prompted a rare tornado emergency, the highest level of alert as it approached densely populated areas. Approximately 40,000 residents were left without power, and at least 24 homes in Monette and Lake City sustained significant damage. 7 individuals were injured, underscoring the tornado's severity. The same storm system continued its destructive path into Missouri and Tennessee. In Missouri, the towns of Advance and Delta faced significant damage, with reports of destroyed homes and infrastructure. In Tennessee, Selmer was directly hit by a significant tornado in the early hours of April 3rd, leading to widespread destruction and prompting emergency response efforts. These events resulted in multiple fatalities and injuries across the affected states. The cumulative effect of these tornadoes has been profound. Beyond the tragic loss of life, thousands of homes have been damaged or destroyed, and critical infrastructure has been compromised. Power outages affected hundreds of thousands, and emergency services were stretched thin responding to the widespread devastation. In response, state and federal agencies mobilized resources to assist in recovery and provide aid to displaced residents. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, coordinated with local authorities to facilitate relief efforts, emphasizing the importance of preparedness and resilience in the face of such natural disasters. These consecutive tornado outbreaks in 2025 have highlighted the increasing volatility of weather patterns and the critical need for enhanced forecasting, early warning systems, and community preparedness to mitigate the impact of such devastating events. The series of destructive tornado outbreaks this year has raised questions about why so many have occurred in such a short time. Scientists and meteorologists have closely analyzed the atmospheric conditions leading to these storms, looking at how shifts in weather patterns have contributed to the severe outbreaks. One of the biggest factors influencing the high number of tornadoes this year has been the unusually strong jet stream activity. The jet stream, a fast-moving ribbon of air high in the atmosphere, plays a key role in storm formation. This year, this current has been positioned in a way that has repeatedly allowed warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico to collide with cold, dry air from the north. This interaction has created ideal conditions for powerful thunderstorms, which are the foundation for tornado formation. Additionally, scientists have observed a persistent La Niña pattern in the Pacific Ocean, which has influenced weather conditions across North America. La Niña typically leads to cooler ocean temperatures in the central and eastern Pacific, affecting atmospheric circulation patterns. This can enhance storm activity in the central United States by increasing instability in the atmosphere. In past years, with strong La Niña phases, tornado seasons have been more active than average, and 2025 has followed that pattern. Another significant factor is the unusually warm Gulf of Mexico waters. The sea surface temperatures in early 2025 have been among the highest recorded for this time of year. Warm ocean water leads to increased evaporation, sending more moisture into the atmosphere. When this warm, humid air moves northward and interacts with frontal boundaries and low-pressure systems, it fuels severe thunderstorms. These conditions have contributed to the repeated outbreaks of tornadoes across multiple states. For a tornado to develop, there must be a combination of wind shear and instability. Wind shear refers to changes in wind speed and direction at different levels of the atmosphere. In 2025, wind shear has been particularly strong in tornado-prone regions, meaning that thunderstorms have had the right conditions to rotate and become supercells, the type of storm most likely to produce tornadoes. Atmospheric instability is another essential ingredient. Instability occurs when warm air near the surface rises quickly into cooler air above, causing strong updrafts. This year, the atmosphere has been highly unstable due to strong temperature contrast between air masses. In some of the most damaging tornadoes, the instability was extreme, with temperature differences exceeding 30 degrees between the surface and the upper atmosphere. Traditionally, the central United States, including states like Kansas, Oklahoma, and Nebraska, has been known as Tornado Alley because of its frequent tornado activity. However, recent years have shown an eastward shift, with more tornadoes occurring in states like Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee. This trend has continued in 2025, with some of the worst tornadoes occurring in the southeastern states. This shift is partly due to changes in climate patterns and the increasing presence of warm, moist air further east. The Central Plains still experience tornadoes, but the frequency of severe storms in the Mississippi Valley and Deep South has increased. The combination of warm Gulf moisture, strong wind shear, and an active jet stream has made these regions especially vulnerable. Although it is still early in the year, 2025 is already on track to be one of the most active tornado seasons in recent history. Compared to previous years, the number of tornadoes recorded so far is significantly higher than average. Meteorologists have compared the start of this year to other highly active years, such as 2011, when a record number of tornadoes occurred across the United States, including the catastrophic outbreak in late April of that year. Some similarities exist, including the presence of a strong La Niña pattern and an active jet stream. However, 2025 has also introduced new factors, such as the exceptionally warm Gulf of Mexico, which has intensified storms even further. As the peak tornado season continues, forecasters are closely watching whether these conditions will persist. If the jet stream remains in a favorable position and the Gulf continues to supply warm, moist air, the heightened tornado activity could continue into late spring and early summer. Scientists are also studying how climate trends may be influencing tornado behavior. While no direct link has been proven between climate change and increased tornadoes, some evidence suggests that a warming climate can contribute to more extreme weather conditions. This includes stronger thunderstorms, more intense rainfall, and possibly changes in tornado frequency and distribution. With multiple severe outbreaks already recorded in 2025, experts are urging communities in tornado-prone regions to stay prepared. Advances in forecasting and early warning systems have helped save lives, but the unpredictability of tornadoes remains a major challenge. Understanding why this year has been so active is a crucial step in improving future preparedness and response efforts. The record-breaking tornado outbreaks of spring 2025 have left lasting effects on the communities they struck. From destroyed homes and businesses to loss of life, the impact has been devastating. As meteorologists continue to analyze this year's severe weather patterns, emergency responders and government agencies are working to improve preparedness and recovery efforts. The destruction caused by the tornadoes of 2025 has been severe, with entire neighborhoods flattened and thousands of residents displaced. Some towns have suffered multiple tornado strikes in a short period, making recovery even more difficult. The cost of rebuilding is expected to be in the billions, with federal and state emergency funds being allocated to assist those affected. Insurance claims have skyrocketed and many families face long-term financial hardships due to property losses. In addition to physical damage, the emotional toll on survivors has been significant. Many people who lived through these tornadoes have described the fear and trauma of losing everything in a matter of seconds. Disaster relief organizations have reported a sharp increase in mental health support requests from affected communities, highlighting the need for ongoing psychological assistance in the aftermath of such devastating storms. One key area of focus following this year's deadly tornadoes has been improving early warning systems and emergency response strategies. Although tornado warnings have become more accurate in recent years, some storms this year formed and intensified so rapidly that people had little time to react. This has prompted discussions on how to enhance radar technology and warning communication methods. Mobile alerts and sirens remain critical tools in notifying people of approaching tornadoes. However, in some cases this year, sirens failed due to power outages or technical issues, leading to tragic consequences. Emergency officials are now pushing for increased funding to modernize alert systems and ensure they remain operational during severe weather. Another major focus has been improving public awareness of tornado safety measures. Some tornadoes in 2025 struck areas that do not typically experience such strong storms, catching many residents unprepared. In response, meteorologists and emergency management agencies are working on new public education campaigns to teach people how to take immediate action when a tornado warning is issued. The unprecedented number of tornadoes this year has also renewed discussions on how to make buildings and infrastructure more resistant to storm damage. Some of the most destructive tornadoes of this year have leveled entire towns, leaving only the strongest structures standing. Engineers and city planners are now exploring ways to reinforce homes, schools, and public buildings to better withstand future storms. One proposed solution is implementing stronger building codes in tornado-prone areas. This could include requiring homes to have reinforced safe rooms, impact-resistant windows, and stronger roof anchoring systems. In areas that were repeatedly hit by tornadoes this year, officials are considering whether new zoning regulations should be introduced to limit construction in high-risk zones. Underground storm shelters have also gained renewed attention. While they are common in some parts of the United States, many communities lack access to them. Some states are now considering incentives for homeowners to install storm shelters, as well as funding for public shelters that can accommodate larger populations. Scientists continue to study whether long-term climate trends are playing a role in the increasing tornado activity seen this year. While tornadoes have always been a part of North America's weather patterns, this year's outbreaks have raised concerns about potential shifts in where and when they occur. One emerging area of research focuses on the warming climate's impact on atmospheric instability. Some studies suggest that rising global temperatures could lead to more frequent and intense thunderstorms, which could in turn produce more tornadoes. However, other factors such as wind shear and jet stream patterns also play a role, making it difficult to predict exactly how tornado activity may change in the coming years. Meteorologists are also working on improving long-range forecasting methods to better predict when conditions will be favorable for severe weather outbreaks. Advances in computer modeling have allowed scientists to identify atmospheric patterns that may indicate an increased risk of tornadoes weeks in advance. If these methods continue to improve, they could help communities better prepare for severe tornado seasons in the future. The tornado outbreaks of 2025 have been some of the most intense and widespread in recent history. From the deadly storms in March to the ongoing destruction in April, this year has demonstrated the devastating power of nature. As recovery efforts continue, there is a strong focus on improving tornado preparedness, strengthening building codes, and advancing weather forecasting technology. For those living in tornado-prone areas, staying informed and prepared remains the best defense against these violent storms. Scientists, emergency responders, and government officials are all working together to understand why this year has been so active and to find ways to reduce the damage caused by future tornadoes. While no one can stop tornadoes from forming, the lessons learned from this year will play a crucial role in helping communities better withstand and recover from future outbreaks. Imagine waking up one morning and taking a deep breath, only to find that the air feels different. It's crisper, almost electric, like every breath fills your lungs with an overwhelming amount of energy. That's because in this scenario, the oxygen levels on Earth have suddenly doubled. It sounds exciting, but would this be a good thing, or would it send the planet into complete chaos? Oxygen is crucial for life on Earth, making up about 1/5 of our atmosphere. But if that amount were to double, it wouldn't just mean fresher air. The entire balance of life on our planet would shift in ways that might seem like something out of a sci-fi movie. For starters, fire would become an immediate and uncontrollable threat. Right now, fires need fuel, heat, and oxygen to burn. With twice as much oxygen in the air, even the smallest spark could turn into an inferno within seconds. A dropped match, a lightning strike, or a simple short circuit could ignite massive fires, spreading faster and burning hotter than anything we've ever seen. Wildfires would become unstoppable, engulfing forests, grasslands, and even cities in flames that would be nearly impossible to put out. Firefighting methods that work today, like water and fire breaks, might not be enough in an oxygen-rich world. But it's not just fires that would change. Human bodies would feel the effects almost immediately. More oxygen might sound like a good thing, but our lungs and bloodstream are built to handle a very specific level of it. Doubling the oxygen could overload our system, leading to a condition called oxygen toxicity. This would cause dizziness, nausea, and confusion at first, but in extreme cases, it could lead to seizures and even lung damage. Athletes might feel an initial boost in energy and endurance, but over time, their bodies would struggle to handle the excess oxygen, leading to long-term health complications. Animals would also be affected, and the impact would vary depending on their size and biology. Smaller creatures like insects would likely thrive in an oxygen-rich world. In prehistoric times, when oxygen levels were higher than they are today, some insects grew to enormous sizes. Dragonflies with wingspans as wide as an eagle's, and millipedes longer than a person. If oxygen levels doubled, we might start seeing something similar again, with bugs growing far larger than what we're used to today. Larger animals, however, would have a harder time adapting. Many species have evolved to function with a precise amount of oxygen, and doubling it could throw off their entire metabolism. Some animals might become hyperactive. Their bodies using the extra oxygen to produce more energy. Others could suffer from oxidative stress, damaging their cells and organs. The natural balance of predator and prey could be completely thrown off, causing ripple effects across entire ecosystems. Even the weather wouldn't stay the same. The increased oxygen levels would change the way the atmosphere interacts with sunlight and moisture, potentially leading to more intense storms. Lightning strikes could become more frequent, triggering even more fires. The sky itself might look different, possibly a deeper, more vibrant blue due to the way light scatters through the atmosphere. This is just the beginning of how a world with doubled oxygen would unfold. The effects would spread far beyond our own bodies and into the natural world in ways we might not expect. As we continue, we'll dive deeper into how plant life, ocean ecosystems, and even evolution itself would change in this strange new reality. With fires raging out of control and animals struggling to adapt, the natural world would be in chaos. But what about plants? You might think that doubling the oxygen in the air would supercharge plant life, making forests greener and crops grow faster. However, the reality is much more complicated. Plants don't rely directly on oxygen for growth. They depend on carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. With more oxygen in the atmosphere, plants might actually struggle to take in enough carbon dioxide, slowing down their ability to produce energy. Some species could adapt and grow larger, while others might become stunted or even start to die off. This would throw entire ecosystems into disarray, as herbivores that rely on plants for food could suddenly face food shortages, leading to population crashes and mass starvation among certain species. But there's another issue: wildfires. In part 1, we talked about how increased oxygen would make fires burn hotter and spread faster. Now imagine a world where plant life is growing at an accelerated rate, but also drying out just as quickly due to increased combustion risks. Even a minor spark could set off massive infernos, destroying entire forests before they have a chance to regenerate. The very thing that seems like a benefit, faster plant growth, would actually lead to more destruction. The oceans wouldn't be spared from these changes either. Right now, the balance of oxygen in the ocean is carefully maintained by marine plants and phytoplankton, which produce much of the oxygen we breathe. If oxygen levels in the air doubled, that balance would shift dramatically. Some marine creatures, like certain fish and crustaceans, would struggle to adapt, while others, particularly bacteria that thrive in high oxygen environments, could take over. This could lead to massive changes in the ocean's food chain, potentially causing some species to boom in population, while others vanish entirely. And then there's evolution. Throughout history, life on Earth has adapted to changing environments, but never at a rate as extreme as this. With increased oxygen, animals might start evolving faster, developing stronger muscles, higher energy levels, and even changes in their respiratory systems to cope with the new conditions. Some creatures could grow larger, much like the giant insects of prehistoric times, while others might develop new ways to use the excess oxygen to their advantage. But this rapid evolution wouldn't just affect animals, it could also impact humans. Over generations, people might develop stronger lungs, increased endurance, or even a different metabolism to handle the higher oxygen levels. However, in the short term, the sudden shift in oxygen could lead to widespread health crises as human bodies struggle to adapt. Hospitals would see a surge in patients dealing with oxygen toxicity, and long-term exposure could lead to permanent damage to our cells and organs. All of these changes would happen at an alarming rate, altering the planet in ways we can't fully predict. But what about the long-term consequences? Could Earth eventually settle into a new balance? Or would this shift lead to an unstoppable chain reaction of disasters? In part 3, we'll explore how human civilization itself would be affected, everything from infrastructure and industry to technology and daily life in this high oxygen world. With nature struggling to adapt and ecosystems facing rapid change, what would life be like for human civilization? The effects of doubled oxygen levels wouldn't just impact our health, it would reshape industries, technology, and even the way cities function. One of the first major changes would be seen in infrastructure. Many of the materials we rely on, such as steel and concrete, undergo oxidation over time, but with twice as much oxygen in the air, corrosion would happen at an accelerated rate. Bridges, buildings, pipelines, and other structures would weaken faster, leading to an increase in maintenance costs and a higher risk of structural failures. Airplanes, ships, and vehicles would also degrade more quickly, making travel and transportation far more dangerous. Factories and power plants would also face new risks. Many industrial processes involve combustion, and with more oxygen available, explosions would become far more frequent and intense. Welding, fuel storage, and even something as simple as lighting a gas stove could become life-threatening if safety measures weren't drastically improved. Fire departments worldwide would have to develop new strategies and technologies just to keep up with the increased number of fires and industrial accidents. But what about energy production? Interestingly, some forms of renewable energy might benefit from the change. Wind turbines could generate more power as oxygen-rich air is denser, allowing for stronger wind currents. However, this benefit would be overshadowed by the challenges in other energy sectors. Fossil fuel power plants would need extensive modifications to handle the increased risk of fire and explosions, and nuclear power facilities might also require new cooling systems to prevent overheating caused by changes in atmospheric pressure and combustion efficiency. Speaking of combustion, the increased oxygen levels would have a significant impact on fuel efficiency. Vehicles that rely on internal combustion engines would burn fuel more efficiently, increasing horsepower and speed. However, this would also mean that accidents would be more severe, as vehicles would have more explosive potential and higher velocities. Car manufacturers would need to redesign engines, braking systems, and safety features to compensate for these changes. On a smaller scale, even daily activities would become riskier. A simple campfire or barbecue could get out of control instantly. Smoking a cigarette could be deadly if the increased oxygen made it burn too hot or too fast. Households would need fireproofing measures just to prevent everyday mishaps from turning into major disasters. Aside from the physical dangers, human society would face a psychological and social shift. The rapid pace of change, both in the environment and in the way we live, could cause widespread panic and instability. Governments would need to impose strict regulations on industry, energy use, and construction to prevent catastrophic failures. Emergency services would be overwhelmed with an increase in fire-related disasters, structural collapses, and health crises related to oxygen toxicity. The financial burden would be enormous. Insurance companies would see a spike in claims due to property damage, fires, and industrial accidents. The costs of maintaining cities and infrastructure would skyrocket, leading to potential economic downturns as governments struggle to keep up. Entire industries might collapse if they can't adapt quickly enough, while new technologies and businesses could emerge to meet the new demands of this high-oxygen world. But with so many risks, could there be any advantages for human civilization? In Part 4, we'll explore the long-term effects, how humanity might adapt, the future of evolution, and whether society could ever stabilize in this extreme new environment. With so many immediate dangers and rapid changes, humanity would be forced to adapt or face disaster. But what would life look like in the long run? Could civilization stabilize in a world with double the oxygen? One of the biggest shifts would be in human biology. Over generations, our bodies would begin to evolve to handle higher oxygen levels. While initial exposure might cause oxygen toxicity, long-term survival could favor individuals with genetic mutations that allow for better oxygen regulation. Future humans might have altered lung structures, changes in blood composition, or even a different metabolic rate. This could lead to longer lifespans, enhanced physical abilities, and a reduction in certain diseases. But it could also bring new health challenges we can't yet predict. With a faster evolutionary pace, the animal kingdom would also undergo massive changes. Some species might shrink to reduce oxygen intake, while others could grow larger, similar to the prehistoric giants that thrived in high oxygen environments. Insects in particular could see a dramatic size increase. Massive dragonflies, enormous beetles, and oversized spiders could become common, reshaping ecosystems in unpredictable ways. Cities and technology would also be forced to evolve. The materials we use would need to be more resistant to corrosion and fire, leading to the development of new alloys, fireproof coatings, and entirely different methods of construction. Some societies might even move toward underground cities or climate-controlled domes to protect themselves from the unstable environment above. Industries that rely on controlled combustion, such as manufacturing and energy production, would be completely reworked. Safer, non-flammable energy sources would become a priority, pushing the rapid advancement of nuclear fusion, geothermal energy, and alternative methods of transportation. Fossil fuels might become obsolete, as burning them in a high-oxygen world would be far too dangerous. Farming and food production would also undergo significant changes. Crops would grow larger and faster, potentially solving food shortages, but with that growth would come new challenges. More plant life means a higher demand for nutrients, leading to soil depletion and the need for enhanced agricultural techniques. Farmers would need to adapt quickly to prevent ecosystems from becoming overwhelmed by aggressive plant species. With new dangers and opportunities, human society might become more divided. Some regions could embrace technological advancements, building ultra-safe, fire-resistant cities with controlled atmospheres. Others might struggle to keep up, leading to economic and social instability. Governments would likely impose strict environmental and industrial regulations, creating a world where safety measures dictate everyday life. Despite all the chaos, humanity has a history of resilience. If we could survive the initial period of instability, we might eventually reach a point where life in a high-oxygen world feels normal. It wouldn't be the same Earth we know today. Fires would remain a constant threat. Creatures would look different, and even the air we breathe would have long-term effects on our bodies. But civilization could still find a way to thrive. In the end, doubling the oxygen on Earth would be a double-edged sword. It could lead to incredible advancements in a new era of evolution, but only if we can overcome the extreme dangers that come with it. One thing is clear: the delicate balance of our atmosphere is something we shouldn't take for granted. What do you think? Would you want to live in a world with twice the oxygen? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring mind-bending scenarios, check out my next video, where I dive into another wild what-if question. Tsunamis are some of the most powerful and destructive forces of nature, capable of reshaping coastlines and causing widespread devastation. But how do they form? What causes these massive waves to suddenly appear? Understanding the science behind tsunamis is key to not only grasping their power, but also to being able to prepare for and minimize their impact. Tsunamis aren't like the regular waves you might see at the beach. These waves are much larger and far more dangerous, and their formation starts deep beneath the ocean's surface. Unlike normal waves, which are driven by wind, tsunamis are usually caused by sudden, massive changes in the ocean floor. This can happen for a variety of reasons, but the most common cause is underwater earthquakes. When an earthquake occurs beneath the ocean, the Earth's crust shifts dramatically. This shift can displace an enormous amount of water, creating a series of waves that spread out from the point of the earthquake. These waves can travel at speeds of up to 500 miles per hour across the open ocean, making them extremely fast and difficult to detect. In fact, even though a tsunami can be triggered miles from shore, it often goes unnoticed until the waves start to approach land. What's unique about these waves is that even though they travel incredibly fast, their height is relatively small in deep water, often only a few feet tall. This is why in the open ocean, ships and boats won't notice a tsunami, as the waves pass beneath them without causing much disruption. But as the waves get closer to shore, the water begins to slow down and the waves begin to grow in height. This is where the real danger lies. When the tsunami reaches the coastline, the water can surge hundreds of feet into the air, creating massive walls of water that crash onto the land. The biggest challenge with tsunamis is their unpredictability. While we have some understanding of the factors that cause them, we still don't know exactly when or where they will occur. And even though we know what triggers tsunamis, there's no real way to predict exactly how big they will be or how far they will travel. This makes it extremely difficult to prepare for their impact, as there's often little to no warning before they strike. The effects of a tsunami can be catastrophic. When a tsunami hits land, it doesn't just cause damage from the waves themselves, but it can also trigger flooding, erosion, and destruction of infrastructure. Coastal communities are particularly vulnerable, as the waves can travel miles inland, sweeping away homes, buildings, and anything else in their path. Even more concerning is the potential for massive loss of life, especially in densely populated areas. And one of the most devastating examples of a tsunami occurred in December of 2004 when a powerful earthquake off the coast of Indonesia triggered a massive tsunami. This tsunami affected countries across the Indian Ocean, including Thailand, Sri Lanka, and India. The waves reached as far as Africa, and more than 200,000 people lost their lives as a result. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami serves as a tragic reminder of just how dangerous and unpredictable these natural disasters can be. The impact of tsunamis can extend far beyond the immediate coastline, affecting global trade, tourism, and commerce. In the wake of a tsunami, it can take months or even years for affected areas to recover. So understanding how tsunamis form and recognizing the warning signs is crucial for minimizing their impact and saving lives. Now that we've covered the basics of tsunami formation, we'll dive deeper into the factors that contribute to these massive waves, including underwater earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and landslides. In the previous part, we explored the basics of tsunamis, but now let's dive deeper into one of the main causes of these devastating waves, underwater earthquakes. These natural events play a major role in generating tsunamis, and understanding how they work can shed light on the formation of these powerful waves. Underwater earthquakes occur when the Earth's tectonic plates shift, usually along fault lines beneath the ocean. The Earth's crust is made up of large, rigid plates that float on the semi-fluid mantle underneath. These plates are constantly moving, and when they collide, slide past one another, or separate, it causes stress to build up along fault lines. Eventually, the pressure becomes too great and the plates suddenly shift, releasing massive amounts of energy in the form of an earthquake. When an earthquake occurs beneath the ocean, the ground can move up or down, displacing the water above it. This sudden displacement is what generates the waves that we know as tsunamis. The size of the tsunami depends on several factors, including the magnitude of the earthquake, the depth of the earthquake's epicenter, and the type of fault movement. For example, a vertical shift in the ocean floor is more likely to displace large amounts of water, creating a higher tsunami wave compared to horizontal movements. The bigger the shift, the more water gets displaced, and the larger the tsunami can become. This is why more powerful earthquakes, such as those with a magnitude of 7 or higher, are more likely to trigger large tsunamis. One important thing to understand is that while the earthquake itself may only last for a few seconds or minutes, the resulting tsunami waves can continue to travel for hours. These waves can affect vast areas, crossing entire oceans and hitting multiple coastlines before they dissipate. The energy from the earthquake spreads across the ocean, causing a chain reaction of waves that grow in height as they approach the shore. Another critical factor in tsunami formation is the location of the earthquake. Tsunamis are most commonly triggered by earthquakes that occur along subduction zones, where one tectonic plate is forced beneath another. These areas are often located along the Pacific Ring of Fire, a region known for frequent earthquakes and volcanic activity. Countries like Japan, Chile, and Indonesia are especially vulnerable to tsunamis due to their proximity to these subduction zones. A classic example of a tsunami triggered by an underwater earthquake is the devastating event that occurred on December 26, 2004. A massive earthquake with a magnitude of 9.1 struck off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia, causing the ocean floor to shift dramatically. This earthquake generated a tsunami that affected countries across the Indian Ocean, including Thailand, Sri Lanka, and even parts of Africa. The waves reached heights of over 30 meters in some areas, causing widespread devastation and loss of life. While underwater earthquakes are a significant cause of tsunamis, they are not the only factor at play. Other events, like volcanic eruptions and underwater landslides, can also trigger tsunami waves. In the next part, we will explore how these factors contribute to tsunami formation and the effects they can have on coastal areas. Stay tuned. In the previous part, we looked at how underwater earthquakes trigger tsunamis, but now let's explore two other powerful forces that can cause tsunamis: volcanic eruptions and underwater landslides. Both of these events can displace massive amounts of water, leading to waves that can travel across the ocean and cause significant damage to coastal areas. Volcanic eruptions can be another key trigger of tsunamis, especially when they occur beneath the ocean. While we usually associate volcanic eruptions with lava flows and explosive ash clouds, when they happen underwater, they can create massive disturbances in the water above. One way that volcanic eruptions trigger tsunamis is through the collapse of a volcanic island or underwater caldera. A caldera is a large bowl-shaped crater that forms when a volcano collapses after an eruption. When the volcano's magma chamber empties, the pressure from the underlying layers of earth can cause the seafloor to drop rapidly, displacing huge amounts of water. This sudden drop in the seafloor can send waves racing across the ocean, much like the waves created by an earthquake. Another way that volcanic eruptions can cause tsunamis is through pyroclastic flows. These fast-moving, hot mixtures of ash, gas, and volcanic debris can travel at high speeds across the ocean surface. When they enter the water, they displace large amounts of water, generating waves. These waves may not be as large as those created by an earthquake or a caldera collapse, but they can still cause significant damage along coastlines. A notable example of a volcanic eruption triggering a tsunami occurred in August of 1923 in Japan. A violent eruption of the Sakurajima volcano created pyroclastic flows that traveled into the sea, displacing enough water to create tsunami waves that caused significant damage to nearby coastal communities. Underwater landslides, also known as submarine landslides, can also be responsible for generating tsunamis. These landslides happen when large amounts of sediment, rocks, or debris move suddenly down the continental slope or underwater slopes. The displaced material causes the water above it to move rapidly, creating waves that can travel across the ocean. Submarine landslides can occur for several reasons, including earthquakes, volcanic activity, or even the buildup of excess water in an area. These landslides are often triggered by the destabilization of the seafloor, which can occur when an underwater earthquake shakes loose sediment and rock. In other cases, volcanic eruptions or underwater mining operations can also displace material, triggering landslides. One infamous case of a tsunami caused by an underwater landslide took place in 1998 off the coast of Papua New Guinea. A massive landslide, triggered by an undersea earthquake, sent waves of up to 10 meters high crashing into the nearby coastline, resulting in over 2,000 deaths and widespread damage. Submarine landslides are often harder to predict than earthquakes or volcanic eruptions, making them a significant threat in areas where underwater slopes are unstable. They can occur suddenly and without warning, adding to the complexity of tsunami forecasting and preparation. In the next part, we will explore the effects of tsunamis and how they impact coastal communities, from the first signs of a tsunami to the aftermath of a devastating wave. Stay tuned for more on this powerful natural phenomenon. Now that we've explored the science behind how tsunamis form, it's time to take a closer look at their impact and the importance of preparation. Tsunamis can be one of the most devastating natural disasters, capable of causing massive destruction in a very short amount of time. While the waves themselves can arrive quickly, the damage they leave behind can last for years, affecting entire communities and economies. When a tsunami hits, the first wave is often not the largest, and multiple waves can follow. These waves can travel across vast distances, and the time between waves can range from minutes to hours. The waves can be extremely powerful, reaching heights of up to 100 feet or more. Depending on the size of the event, the force of the water can cause buildings to collapse, sweep away vehicles, and flood entire cities. Coastal areas are especially vulnerable, as they are directly in the path of the waves. The damage caused by a tsunami isn't just physical. The waves can also severely impact the environment, destroying marine ecosystems, beaches, and vital coastal habitats. The displacement of water can lead to changes in local water quality, and the debris carried by the waves can spread pollutants. In the aftermath of a tsunami, the economic costs can be enormous, especially for communities that rely on tourism, fishing, or trade for their livelihood. In addition to the immediate destruction, tsunamis can leave long-term effects that persist for years. Communities often face rebuilding efforts that can take decades, and many people are displaced from their homes either temporarily or permanently. It can take a long time for people to return to their normal lives, and recovery efforts can be hindered by damaged infrastructure, lack of resources, and challenges in coordinating aid. Despite the devastation caused by tsunamis, there are ways to mitigate their impact. One of the most important factors in minimizing the destruction of a tsunami is early warning systems. Tsunami warning systems rely on networks of sensors placed on the ocean floor to detect changes in water pressure caused by earthquakes or underwater landslides. When a potential tsunami is detected, warnings are issued to coastal communities, giving them time to evacuate to higher ground. Tsunami evacuation plans and drills are essential for preparing people for these events. Communities in high-risk areas must have clear evacuation routes and safe zones, and local authorities must ensure that residents are educated on what to do if a tsunami occurs. The quicker people can evacuate, the more lives can be saved. Another important factor in minimizing the impact of tsunamis is effective building codes and infrastructure design. In areas where tsunamis are a known risk, buildings should be constructed with materials and designs that can withstand the force of the waves. Coastal barriers, like seawalls or floodgates, can also help protect vulnerable areas from flooding. Tsunamis are unpredictable and can strike at any time, but through increased awareness, preparation, and the use of technology, we can reduce their devastating effects. By studying past events and improving our understanding of tsunami formation, we can develop better strategies for both prevention and recovery. Understanding how tsunamis form and their potential impact is essential for preparing communities and saving lives. If you're interested in learning more about natural disasters and how they shape our world, be sure to check out my next video. Stay safe, and remember that preparedness is key when it comes to surviving a tsunami. Mount Fuji is one of Japan's most famous landmarks, but beneath its beauty lies a serious threat. It is an active volcano, and though it has been dormant since its last eruption more than 300 years ago, scientists warn that an eruption is still possible. If Mount Fuji were to erupt tomorrow, it could have devastating consequences, not just for Japan, but for the entire world. The Japanese government has been preparing for such a scenario for years. Experts have studied past eruptions, including the massive Hoei eruption more than 300 years ago, to understand what might happen. That eruption blanketed parts of Tokyo, then known as Edo, in thick layers of ash. A modern-day eruption could be even more catastrophic, as Japan's population and infrastructure have grown significantly since then. Scientists closely monitor Mount Fuji for any signs of activity using seismic sensors, satellite imagery, and gas analysis. Although there are currently no immediate warnings, the possibility of an eruption remains. Mount Fuji is part of the Fuji Volcanic Zone, a chain of volcanoes driven by the subduction of tectonic plates beneath Japan. Over time, pressure builds up beneath the surface, and when it finally releases, it can lead to a major eruption. If an eruption were to happen tomorrow, the first sign would likely be an increase in earthquakes beneath the mountain. These tremors would indicate magma rising toward the surface. Scientists would rush to analyze the data, but there might not be much time before the volcano erupts. Within hours or even minutes, explosions could begin at the summit, sending ash and volcanic gases high into the sky. The initial eruption would likely be violent, with lava and ash spewing from the crater. Depending on the size of the eruption, the immediate area around Mount Fuji could be devastated. The surrounding region, including the Yamanashi and Shizuoka prefectures, would be covered in volcanic debris. The force of the eruption could trigger landslides, further endangering those nearby. One of the biggest concerns is the impact on Tokyo, which lies about 100 miles away. Even though the city is not directly next to Mount Fuji, the wind could carry ash clouds toward the capital. A heavy ash fall could disrupt daily life, making it difficult to breathe and reducing visibility. The government has advised residents to stay indoors in case of such an event, as inhaling volcanic ash can cause severe respiratory problems. Air travel would be among the first things affected. Flights across Japan and possibly beyond would be grounded as the ash cloud spreads. Volcanic ash is extremely dangerous for aircraft, as it can clog engines and damage instruments. In past eruptions around the world, flights have been cancelled for days or even weeks. If Mount Fuji erupts, Japan's busy airports could come to a complete standstill. The eruption could also cause power outages and disrupt essential services. Ash can accumulate on power lines, causing them to collapse under the weight. Water supplies could be contaminated, and internet and phone networks might go down in affected areas. The government would need to act quickly to ensure that emergency services remain functional and that residents have access to clean water and electricity. This hypothetical scenario is not just speculation. Japan has been making detailed preparations in case Mount Fuji erupts. The government has already released guidelines for residents, advising them to store at least 2 weeks' worth of food and water. Officials have also mapped out evacuation routes and designated shelters. However, no one can predict exactly when the next eruption will happen. Scientists warn that even though Mount Fuji appears calm now, it could erupt at any time and the consequences could be catastrophic. As we move on, we will explore how the eruption could unfold over the first few days and the long-term damage it could cause. As the eruption of Mount Fuji continues into its first full day, the situation worsens. The initial explosions have sent ash and volcanic gases high into the atmosphere, and the skies above central Japan are darkened. The once iconic peak of Mount Fuji is now covered in thick clouds of smoke, obscuring it from view. Tremors still shake the ground, a sign that the eruption is far from over. With strong winds pushing the ash eastward, Tokyo and its surrounding regions begin to experience significant ashfall. But even though the city is not close to the volcano, fine volcanic ash can travel hundreds of miles. A light dusting coats streets, rooftops, and vehicles, turning the landscape an eerie gray. Residents who venture outside wear masks and protective glasses as breathing in the fine particles can cause lung irritation and other health issues. Hospitals see an increase in patients suffering from breathing difficulties, and those with pre-existing conditions like asthma are particularly at risk. The weight of the ash also starts to take a toll on infrastructure. Although only a few centimeters have accumulated in some areas, it is enough to clog drainage systems, making roads slippery and dangerous. If the eruption continues, heavier ashfall could collapse roofs, disrupt transportation, and cause severe structural damage. Officials work urgently to clear major highways, but visibility is low, and driving conditions remain hazardous. Japan's famed bullet trains, known for their speed and efficiency, are halted as a precautionary measure. Even a small amount of ash can interfere with train operations, and major railway lines suspend service until the tracks can be cleared and the risk assessed. In some areas, bus services and subways continue running, but delays and overcrowding become widespread. With public transportation disrupted, people struggle to reach their workplaces, and businesses begin shutting down. Air travel remains at a standstill. Airports in Tokyo, Osaka, and Nagoya cancel all flights, as volcanic ash poses a serious threat to jet engines. The international impact begins to grow as flights scheduled to land in Japan are diverted, and airlines worldwide adjust their schedules to avoid the expanding ash cloud. The economic consequences of these disruptions are already being felt, as Japan is a major hub for international business and tourism. Meanwhile, closer to the eruption site, thousands of residents in the surrounding prefectures have been forced to flee. Evacuations continue as emergency shelters fill with people seeking refuge. Some roads leading away from Mount Fuji are covered in ash or partially blocked by falling debris, making travel slow and difficult. Authorities use helicopters and boats to evacuate those stranded in the hardest hit areas. As the hours pass, scientists monitoring the eruption analyze data to determine how long it may last. Volcanic activity can be unpredictable. Some eruptions weaken within days, while others continue for weeks or even months. If Mount Fuji follows the pattern of its past eruptions, the danger is far from over. The presence of pyroclastic flows, fast-moving currents of hot gas and volcanic material, is another major concern. These flows, which can reach speeds of hundreds of miles per hour, are impossible to outrun and can destroy everything in their path. Japan's government urges citizens to remain indoors if they are not in immediate danger. Many people have already stocked up on emergency supplies as recommended by officials, but stores in unaffected areas experience a surge in panic buying. Essentials like bottled water, non-perishable food, and batteries disappear from shelves within hours. Online orders for air purifiers and protective masks skyrocket as people prepare for prolonged exposure to ash. As we continue, we will examine the long-term consequences of the eruption, including its impact on the environment, agriculture, and Japan's economy. In the days following Mount Fuji's eruption, the scale of the disaster becomes more evident. The initial explosion was only the beginning, and now the lingering effects of the eruption begin to reshape daily life across Japan. As the ash cloud continues to spread, concerns shift from immediate evacuations to the long-term consequences that could last for months or even years. One of the most pressing issues is the growing strain on Japan's economy. The closure of airports, highways, and train lines has already caused billions of dollars in losses, and as time passes, more industries feel the impact. Factories, in the Tokyo-Yokohama region, some of the country's most important manufacturing hubs, are forced to suspend operations. Ashfall has contaminated water supplies in some areas, forcing businesses that rely on clean water, such as semiconductor plants and food processing facilities, to shut down temporarily. In rural areas surrounding Mount Fuji, farmers face a crisis of their own. Crops covered in even a thin layer of volcanic ash can be damaged beyond repair. Rice fields, vegetable farms, and tea plantations are particularly vulnerable as the ash alters the soil's pH levels and blocks sunlight from reaching plants. Livestock farmers also struggle as volcanic ash contaminates grazing fields and water sources, making it difficult to feed their animals. With food production disrupted, grocery stores in Tokyo and other major cities begin to see shortages, driving up prices and increasing pressure on supply chains. The eruption's impact extends beyond Japan's borders. Countries that import Japanese goods, particularly automobiles and electronics, face delays as factories remain closed. The stock market reacts with uncertainty, and investors closely watch how Japan's government handles the crisis. Meanwhile, tourism, a major part of Japan's economy, has come to a standstill. The famous Mount Fuji, once a symbol of beauty and tranquility, is now a disaster zone. Popular destinations like Hakone and the Fuji Five Lakes region, known for their scenic views, have been evacuated, and hotels that once hosted thousands of visitors now sit empty. Environmental consequences also start to unfold. The ash cloud that drifted over the Pacific Ocean has begun affecting neighboring countries, with reports of fine ash reaching parts of South Korea and China. While the amount is not enough to cause serious damage, air quality levels have dropped in some areas. Scientists monitor the situation closely, as a prolonged eruption could lead to further disruptions in weather patterns, similar to how past volcanic eruptions have caused temporary cooling on a global scale. Japan's government, already working around the clock to manage the disaster, now faces another challenge: the massive cleanup effort. Removing volcanic ash from roads, buildings, and waterways is a slow and expensive process. In some areas, the ash has mixed with rain, forming a thick, cement-like sludge that clogs drainage systems. This increases the risk of flooding, especially in low-lying areas near Tokyo. Authorities deploy thousands of workers and military personnel to clear the streets, but progress is slow, and officials warn that it could take months to fully restore infrastructure. As the cleanup continues, scientists assess the state of Mount Fuji itself. The mountain's shape has been altered by the eruption, with new craters and fissures forming near the summit. Researchers conduct aerial surveys and analyze seismic activity to determine whether another eruption could occur. While the current eruption has started to weaken, experts warn that volcanic activity often comes in cycles. If magma continues to build up beneath the surface, additional eruptions could follow in the coming months. In the next part, we will explore how Japan's emergency response teams are handling the crisis, the ongoing evacuation efforts, and the challenges of rebuilding communities affected by the disaster. With Mount Fuji's eruption leaving much of central Japan in crisis, emergency response efforts shift toward long-term survival and recovery. While the immediate danger has lessened, the aftermath presents new challenges, and the full scope of destruction is still unfolding. The Japanese government and international aid organizations work tirelessly to assist displaced residents, restore essential services, and prevent further disasters from emerging in the wake of the eruption. Evacuations remain a top priority as many areas are still unsafe. The thick layers of ash covering homes, schools, and businesses have made entire towns uninhabitable. Even areas that initially seemed unaffected now face new risks: structural damage from the weight of ash, contaminated water supplies, and the increased likelihood of landslides. Heavy rains in the region could mix with loose ash deposits, triggering massive mud flows that threaten both urban and rural areas. Authorities closely monitor these conditions and expand evacuation zones as needed, sending thousands more to shelters in safer regions. Inside these shelters, overcrowding and limited resources create difficult living conditions. Despite efforts to stockpile supplies ahead of time, the sheer number of evacuees puts immense strain on food, clean water, and medical care. Hospitals struggle to keep up with the influx of patients suffering from respiratory issues caused by inhaling volcanic ash. While face masks help reduce exposure, prolonged breathing of fine ash particles can lead to severe lung problems, particularly for children, the elderly, and those with pre-existing conditions. Mobile clinics are set up near evacuation sites, but healthcare workers warn that without improved air quality, respiratory illnesses will continue to rise. Beyond the health crisis, Japan's infrastructure faces overwhelming challenges. Railways and highways leading into Tokyo remain partially shut down due to persistent ash accumulation. Bullet trains, known for their speed and efficiency, operate at a fraction of their normal capacity, and airlines struggle to resume flights as ash continues to affect air traffic. The financial burden of maintaining these closures grows daily, adding to the already staggering economic toll. Government officials estimate that full restoration of transportation networks could take months, further delaying recovery efforts. The energy sector is also under strain. Ash has coated solar panels, rendering them ineffective, and power plants located near the base of Mount Fuji remain offline due to damage. While emergency generators help prevent widespread blackouts, officials warn of possible electricity shortages, especially as demand rises in colder months. The Japanese government urges citizens to conserve power wherever possible, implementing scheduled blackouts in some regions to manage supply. Despite these hardships, Japan's response to the disaster demonstrates resilience and preparedness. The government, already experienced in handling natural disasters such as earthquakes and tsunamis, coordinates relief efforts with military precision. Volunteers from across the country arrive to assist with cleanup operations, and engineers work around the clock to clear roadways and reinforce damaged buildings. International aid also pours in, with countries sending financial assistance, medical supplies, and rescue teams. Meanwhile, scientists continue monitoring Mount Fuji, analyzing gas emissions and seismic activity to determine if further eruptions could occur. While the worst appears to be over, they warn that Japan must remain on high alert. History shows that volcanoes can have prolonged eruptive periods, sometimes lasting months or even years. If new activity is detected beneath Mount Fuji, evacuation plans may need to be extended indefinitely, forcing many residents to reconsider their futures. As Japan moves from emergency response to long-term recovery, the nation faces tough decisions about rebuilding. Some communities near Mount Fuji may never be safe to return to, and large-scale relocation efforts could be necessary. The eruption has left scars not only on the landscape, but also on the people who call this region home. The road to recovery will be long, but Japan's history of resilience suggests that even in the face of such a catastrophe, the country will rebuild, adapt, and emerge stronger than before. As we wrap up, we will examine the long-term consequences of the eruption, from global economic effects to the future of Mount Fuji itself. As Japan begins the long process of recovery, the global impact of Mount Fuji's eruption becomes increasingly clear. While the immediate crisis has passed, the long-term consequences are only beginning to unfold. From economic disruptions to environmental changes, the effects of this event will be felt for years. One of the most significant global impacts is on trade and commerce. Japan, a major player in global markets, faces challenges as industries struggle to recover. Manufacturing plants shut down due to ash contamination, supply chains remain disrupted, and exports slow as ports along the Pacific coast work to clear debris and repair damage. The electronics and automotive industries, which rely on precision manufacturing, are particularly affected, causing ripple effects in international markets. Companies dependent on Japanese parts and technology experience delays, driving up costs worldwide. Tourism, a key part of Japan's economy, also suffers. Mount Fuji, once a major attraction, is now a restricted zone due to unstable ground and ongoing seismic activity. Popular travel destinations across central Japan report massive declines in visitors, and airlines struggle to resume normal operations. While the government plans to launch recovery campaigns to rebuild tourism, the uncertainty surrounding Mount Fuji's condition leaves many hesitant to return. Environmental consequences extend far beyond Japan's borders. The vast amount of volcanic ash released into the atmosphere affects global weather patterns. Scientists observe a temporary cooling effect as the fine particles reflect sunlight away from the Earth's surface. This could lead to unusual weather conditions in the coming years, altering monsoon patterns in Asia and affecting agricultural production in regions thousands of miles away. Crop yields in various countries may decline, leading to food shortages and price increases. Closer to the eruption site, the natural environment undergoes drastic changes. Rivers and lakes near Mount Fuji become polluted with ash, affecting aquatic life and local water sources. Forests on the slopes of the mountain, once lush and vibrant, are now barren, covered in layers of gray ash. Wildlife that once thrived in these ecosystems struggles to survive, forcing species to migrate or face extinction in the area. Scientists begin long-term studies on how the eruption has altered the region's biodiversity and what recovery efforts may be needed. For the people of Japan, the psychological and cultural impact of the eruption cannot be overstated. Mount Fuji, long considered a sacred symbol of the nation, now stands as a reminder of both nature's power and the fragility of human existence. Many who lived in its shadow their entire lives must now relocate permanently, leaving behind homes, businesses, and generations of history. The Japanese government provides financial aid and relocation assistance, but rebuilding lives proves to be just as difficult as reconstructing cities. Despite the devastation, Japan demonstrates remarkable resilience. Reconstruction efforts begin almost immediately, with engineers designing stronger buildings, improved evacuation routes, and better infrastructure to withstand future disasters. Scientists use new data from the eruption to refine prediction models, hoping to improve early warning systems. The experience serves as a reminder of the importance of preparation, not just for Japan, but for nations worldwide that live in the shadow of active volcanoes. As time passes, Mount Fuji will slowly recover, and so will the communities that surround it. Though its landscape has changed, its significance remains. The eruption of Mount Fuji is a defining event in Japan's history, one that reshapes the country but does not break it. The lessons learned from this disaster will help guide future generations, ensuring that even in the face of nature's most powerful forces, humanity continues to adapt and endure. Tornadoes are one of the most powerful and unpredictable weather events on Earth. These violent windstorms can form quickly, destroy entire neighborhoods in minutes, and leave behind paths of devastation. But how exactly do they form? The answer lies in the right combination of weather conditions all coming together in just the right way. A tornado starts with a thunderstorm, but not just any thunderstorm. Most tornadoes form from a type of storm called a supercell. These massive rotating storms can grow to be over 10 miles wide and last for several hours. The key ingredient in supercells is wind shear, which happens when winds at different altitudes blow at different speeds or directions. This causes the air to start rotating horizontally, forming an invisible spinning tube in the atmosphere. At the same time, warm, moist air from the ground rises into the storm, while cooler air sinks down. This process tilts the rotating air from horizontal to vertical, creating a powerful updraft. If this updraft is strong enough, it stretches and tightens the rotating air, increasing its speed. Over time, this spinning air column extends downward from the storm cloud, eventually touching the ground and becoming a tornado. Tornado formation is influenced by temperature and humidity differences. Warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico and cool, dry air from Canada often collide in the central United States, creating ideal conditions for tornadoes. This region, known as Tornado Alley, experiences hundreds of tornadoes every year. However, tornadoes can form in many parts of the world, from Europe to Australia and even parts of South America. Not every supercell produces a tornado, but when the right conditions align, the results can be devastating. Some tornadoes last only a few minutes, while others can stay on the ground for over an hour, carving a destructive path miles long. In the next part, we will look at what happens inside a tornado and how scientists measure their power. Once a tornado forms, it becomes a rapidly spinning column of air that can reach incredible speeds and cause widespread destruction. But what exactly happens inside a tornado, and how do scientists measure its strength? At the core of a tornado is an area of extremely low pressure. As the surrounding air rushes in to fill this pressure gap, it spirals upward at high speeds. The rotation within the tornado is so intense that it can lift heavy objects, rip apart buildings, and even pull trees from the ground. Wind speeds inside a tornado can range from less than 70 miles per hour and weaker ones to over 300 miles per hour in the most extreme cases. The faster the rotation, the more destructive the tornado becomes. Scientists use the Enhanced Fujita Scale, or EF scale, to measure the strength of a tornado. This scale ranks tornadoes from EF0 to EF5 based on the damage they cause. An EF0 tornado has winds between 65 and 85 miles per hour and usually results in minor damage, such as broken tree branches and small roof damage. On the other hand, an EF5 tornado with winds over 200 miles per hour can level entire buildings, toss vehicles, and leave nothing but a bare foundation behind. Since wind speeds inside a tornado are difficult to measure directly, meteorologists assess the destruction left behind to determine the tornado's rating. One of the most dangerous aspects of a tornado is the debris it carries. Flying debris, such as wood, metal, and glass, can turn into deadly projectiles, causing injuries and fatalities. Tornadoes can also create powerful suction forces, making objects appear as if they were thrown in multiple directions at once. Some tornadoes are strong enough to lift large trucks and even small buildings off the ground. While tornadoes are often associated with dark, swirling funnels, not all of them are easily visible. Some tornadoes, especially those forming at night or in heavy rain, can be nearly invisible until they are right on top of a location. This is why tornado warnings and early detection systems are so critical. In the next part, we will explore how tornadoes move, why some last longer than others, and what meteorologists are doing to improve forecasting and safety measures. Tornadoes are unpredictable and can change direction, speed, and intensity in a matter of minutes. But what determines how a tornado moves, and why do some last only a few minutes while others persist for over an hour? The movement of a tornado is controlled by the larger storm system that creates it. Most tornadoes form within supercell thunderstorms, which are massive rotating storm systems driven by powerful winds in the atmosphere. These winds, known as steering winds, push the storm and its tornado in a specific direction. In the United States, for example, many tornadoes traveled from southwest to northeast due to prevailing wind patterns. However, some tornadoes can suddenly shift directions or even move in loops if the wind conditions change. The lifespan of a tornado depends on several factors, including the strength of the storm, the stability of the rotating air, and the availability of warm, moist air near the surface. Weak tornadoes may last only a few minutes before losing energy and dissipating. However, stronger tornadoes, especially those formed by long-lasting supercells, can stay on the ground for over an hour and travel dozens of miles. One of the longest-lasting tornadoes on record, known as the Tri-State Tornado of 1925, traveled over 200 miles across Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana, remaining on the ground for more than 3 hours. Tornadoes can also vary widely in size. Some are narrow, with a width of less than 100 feet, while others can stretch more than 2 miles across. The widest tornado on record occurred in Oklahoma in 2013, measuring an astonishing 2.6 miles across at its peak. A tornado's size does not always indicate its strength, but larger tornadoes often cover a greater area and can cause more widespread destruction. Understanding tornado movement is essential for improving tornado warnings and forecasting. Meteorologists use radar technology to track the formation and path of tornadoes in real time. Doppler radar, in particular, helps scientists detect rotation within a storm before a tornado even touches the ground. By studying past tornadoes and analyzing weather patterns, researchers continue to develop better prediction methods to give people more time to take shelter. As we wrap up, we will look at how tornadoes eventually come to an end, what factors cause them to weaken, and the safety measures that can help protect lives when a tornado strikes. Tornadoes are among the most powerful forces of nature, but they do not last forever. Every tornado eventually weakens and disappears. But what causes this to happen? A tornado begins to dissipate when the conditions that sustain it start to change. The rotating column of air inside a tornado needs a steady supply of warm, moist air from the ground to keep spinning. If this flow is disrupted, such as when cooler, drier air gets pulled into the system, the tornado starts to lose strength. Additionally, changes in the structure of the parent thunderstorm can weaken the tornado. If the storm begins to collapse or move into an area with less atmospheric instability, the tornado will become less organized and eventually break apart. The process of tornado dissipation often follows a pattern. The funnel cloud may begin to narrow and stretch, resembling a thin rope. This stage, known as the roping out phase, is when the tornado becomes weaker and less stable. However, even a weakening tornado can still produce dangerous winds and cause destruction until it fully disappears. Some tornadoes break apart quickly, while others slowly wind down over several minutes. Once a tornado ends, the damage it leaves behind is often analyzed to determine its strength. Scientists use the Enhanced Fujita scale, or EF scale, to rate tornadoes based on the severity of the destruction they cause. This scale ranges from E.F-0, which indicates minor damage, to E.F-5, which represents catastrophic destruction with winds exceeding 200 miles per hour. By studying damage patterns, researchers can estimate wind speeds and learn more about how tornadoes interact with different environments. Because tornadoes can be unpredictable, knowing how to stay safe is crucial. Tornado warnings are issued when a tornado has been detected, and people in the affected area are urged to seek shelter immediately. The safest place to be during a tornado is an underground storm shelter or a windowless interior room on the lowest floor of a building. Mobile homes and vehicles are particularly dangerous in a tornado, as they can be easily lifted or overturned by strong winds. Tornado research continues to advance, with scientists using radar, satellite data, and even storm-chasing teams to gather more information about how tornadoes form and evolve. Understanding these storms helps improve forecasting, giving people more time to prepare and take shelter. Tornadoes may be short-lived, but their impact can last for years. By studying how they form, move, and dissipate, meteorologists and researchers work toward better prediction methods to save lives and reduce destruction. While we cannot stop tornadoes from occurring, knowledge and preparation are the best defenses against their devastating power.